Let me pull up the story from Yahoo News. It's a story originally from The Advocate. Bud Light pledges $200,000 to support LGBTQ plus business owners of color. They also recently sponsored a pride parade. I'm just going to say this outright. If a company is seeing a 30% drop off in sales, has fallen from the number 1 spot to number 2, has seen a stock drop off of $27 billion. That's billion with a B. And then they double down. That's not a business.
I'll tell you why they're doing it.
That's not a business, because a business is trying to produce a service or product and sell it to people. Bud Light is an advocacy institution. I think two important things. I think American First Legal, I believe it is, I'm not entirely sure. Someone is saying, if you were a shareholder, contact us. This looks like a very serious violation of their fiduciary duties to their shareholders. You may have a legal case. I will also say, well, there's one other thing I want to add to this, but the first is this company, in my opinion, is probably going to collapse into a certain degree if they keep doing this. You can't, like, they're really crossing their fingers that Bud Light as beer will do better than, they don't need it to be a company anymore. It is now, they're hoping that it is a solidified, entrenched institution that can never be dismantled, too big to fail. Then they can wear it like a skin suit and use the money you buy for beer to support a cult. Think about that. Bud Light is not a business. It is funneling your money into a cult, despite knowing it is destroying their business. It's because they don't care. When the brain slug latches onto your skull, does the brain slug care whether you live or die? That's obviously, brain slugs aren't real. My point is, whatever strange creature has gripped Bud Light, it doesn't care if it sucks the innards out until it withers into a husk and collapses, because it is extracting the resources from this once great American institution. They know they're collapsing. Their shareholders know it's collapsing. Bud Light does not care.
Yes, and I know why. There's a name for that slug. It's called CEI.
It's the HRC is that slug that's using CEI, because Bud Light just lost their perfect CEI score, which feeds into their DEI score, like last week.
Their ESG score?
I have a viral tweet about it, actually. It's got 35,000 likes on it, so I'm just going to read that. It's titled, "Why is Everything Gay?" Buckle up, because we're going down the gay rabbit hole. The CEI is the Corporate Equality Index. It is a woke credit score that judges companies based on how many woke issues they're posting. And then to get ahead of it, I said, well, what is woke? Because that's always the question. Well, you guys don't even know what that means. It's like, yeah, it's a presence. We all know what it means. But it says the word's co-opted from the Black community by gender activists, and it's been infected with this cultural war. It's been infected with neo-Marxism. That's what it is. So who made it up and who gives the score? So from my understanding, it's the Human Rights Campaign, HRC, sends lobbyists to these countries, and it gives them a list of these demands. And if they do not comply with these demands, then the woke investors put pressure on the boards, activists are mobilized, advertising campaigns are shut down, they lose their funding, they lose their investors, they get threats. So anyone who continues to do business with them, these people, they get penalized as well, anybody who does business. So who's funding the HRC? There's a lot of different ones, and two of them are through George Soros companies. The first one's the Open Society Foundation, and the other one is like the George Soros Foundation or something. And this is something you can vet. You can look it up right now. So who runs the Open Society Foundation? Then I wrote, definitely don't Google that, because we're not allowed to talk about that guy. He's the one we shall not talk of. So essentially, if you don't get a good score, the lizard god king of the world doesn't let your business exist. So this fake score is everywhere. It's controlling everything. It's coercion, and this is the despotic rot that is.
Bud Light doesn't care about their business. Yeah. So there's nothing. Bud Light doesn't care about making money.
Yes. So I agree. So what is happening now is it's demoralization. It's part of that denationalization thing that I was talking about earlier. This is the demoralization process. So what they do, they take an American institution like Bud Light, like Target, like Walmart, and they, like Tim had said, they infect it with this brain slug. Now, the idea is that people are just going to accept that. That's what they want you to believe. Like, no, we're just going to do this. This is the way forward. We're going to accept that. But that's not the truth, as you can tell by the stocks dropping and how much money they're losing. People aren't just accepting that. So that means that it's an American institution is going to fail. prestigious American institution going to fail before our eyes, and it's going to demoralize the country, and that's what it is.
It's Belgian now. It's owned by AB InBev, which is a Belgian company. So they essentially sold out. I'm trying to find out when Budweiser sold out to the Belgians. I can't find a year, but it's not an American company anymore. It has the red, white, and blue. Or has the red and white logo, and then Bud Light has the blue and white
it's
logo.
It's an establishment. It's at every 4th of July picnic. You know, it's Memorial Day.
It's an American institution, like an American icon that they're actually just taking down.
That they're just going to take it down.
The Belgians are using, and I'm not blaming all Belgian people, but this Belgian company is using it to trick people into giving them money to impact and invest on whatever they want, but they're letting the Budweiser brand fall apart right now. They don't care. You're right. They don't care because it's AB InBev. It's worth probably 1,000 times what Budweiser itself is worth, or something. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but it's just a drop in the bucket of their total brand.
I think people need to understand that the Constitution is meaningless to a culture that does not care for the Constitution.
Yes.
It can say whatever it wants. It can say all of these really great things. And if the people behind what's happening with Bud Light and young people, when they get older, if they are the dominant cultural force, you will have soldiers in your homes. You won't have guns. You won't have speech. You won't have a right to a trial. You'll go to a trial and they'll say, man, you're guilty because we said so. Look at Donald Trump being found criminally liable of a 30-year-old insane story about how he went to a clothing store and had sex with a woman. Yep. And then she was like, oh, we found the one dressing room that was open, and then he had his way with me or whatever. And it's just, there's no evidence. Mm-hmm. There's no logic to it. Trump, at the peak of his fame, walking with no security into a heavily populated department store and nobody notices or says anything. No one comes up to him, and then he finds an empty room. Like, this story is completely insane. But they still said, yep, confirmed. We are inching towards this point. Look at the January 6th defendants. There's a guy who's on video who's talking to the cops, smiling and nodding his head, and then ushering people out of the building. A Proud Boy. He got 12 years in federal prison, even though he was helping the police. They don't care. They will lie. Then you will be like, well, I'll go to trial. And then the jurors are all going to be sitting there waving their cult flags. And they're going to be like, we don't care what the Constitution says. We won. We will lock you up. And the cops will come to your house and say, I have a First Amendment right to speak. And they'll be like, none of that matters anymore. And then they'll crack you with the truncheon and throw you in the van.
Yeah, the problem with the U.S. Constitution is it's not adapted to the age of the internet. It's still reliant on before.
No, that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about.
It totally does, because mob mentality can spark overnight now with the internet, and that the Constitution can't stop it.
And no Constitution can stop it. But literally nothing.
But something that at least prevents people from controlling social media can allow us to stop it. But if we can't stop social media from muting our conversations, then no one can stop it. So we need free speech, in that we need these systems to be free and open so that we can organize as the Constitution intended for us.
I agree to a certain I agree to a certain degree, but the issue is, when the left started encroaching and enforcing these things, people on the right said, I'm so scared, please just leave me alone. And they did nothing. Very few people. I mean, a lot of people did, don't get me wrong. Trump obviously rose up, he got elected. But I can't tell you how many. Look, Bud Light, they only lost 30% of their sales. There are still people who will drink Bud Light or other AB InBev products. There are still people on the right who aren't going to do anything. And they're going to be like, I'd rather just keep my head down and not say a word. And so long as look, the problem is not that evil exists. It's that good men do nothing.
Yeah. I think people are waiting for someone else to fix the Constitution right now. And I'm open to rapid adaptation, but I'm also very concerned about rapid adaptation.
I don't want anybody in. I don't want to see another amendment added by this Congress. Like, even I'd even be worried about the Article 5 states convention. Like, at this point, I don't trust anybody. There's so many communists infiltrated into the government that if they added another amendment, God knows what it would do. I believe the way forward is the 10th Amendment. I believe that the way forward is like the courts that are corrupt. Those courts are in New York. Those courts are in D.C. You know, there's a stranglehold there on these corrupt courts. I worry about what happened to Donald Trump, because they could do this to Justice Kavanaugh now. They could make him guilty.
Bud Light needs to collapse. Yeah. It's a big ask, but Bud Light needs to collapse completely to the point of it being a non-existent product, so that a message is sent that there is a red line that we will not cross. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they can capture institutions and then gut them, strip the resources, and people keep buying it, and they will just use it like a skin suit.
Yep.
Well, I was going to ask you, do you think that there will come a point where Anheuser-Busch is realizing that Bud Light's just draining everything, and to get rid of this, they just cut Bud Light loose, close the brand, and then just move on with something else? They'll still produce Bud Light, but under a different name.
Oh, once
Not by choice.
Yeah.
Once it's dead, it's dead.
Yeah, if people don't buy it at all. And so we're hearing more and more and more that people are not buying it. Sales are down 29.5%. That is insanely massive. That may be getting to the point where it's no longer profitable to produce.
Yeah. Well, it's no longer profit. Well, and then it will take a turn when, BlackRock and Vanguard don't have enough money to support these industries.
So I don't know, like Anheuser-Busch, obviously Bud Light is the biggest. They're not anymore. They're not number one. Modelo is now number one in the United States, which is huge.
Great.
But let me tell you,
Love that.
we're making this coffee over at Cask Brew, and it is very, very difficult. We've invested $250,000 to start. We actually started with a little bit less, and then we keep having to put more money in. When we sell a bag of coffee, we do make a profit, but then we have to reorder that bag and we have to recycle the profits because we sold out so quickly. We have to order more coffee the next time, which consumes all the profits plus more. I would love to get to the point where we could sell cans of cold brew all over the country. Mm-hmm. The issue is that producing canned liquids, you need to order a lot of it. We had Seth Weathers here. He was saying, no, you can do it less. You could do it cheaper. Every company we've talked to about production, distribution, sourcing, and all that stuff, they've basically said it'll come out to about $5 for a can. And I'm like, that's crazy. Like, that's a lot. Now, I understand you go to the gas station, it might be like $3.99 for a can of cold brew as it is. And the reason they get Starbucks will get that cost down is because they'll make 50 million cans, or maybe not 50, but like 10 million cans. And then if they make 10 cents per can, they're going to make enough profit for it to work for them. But for us, we cannot produce enough of this to get the price down that low. You make 1 million cans and you make $1 per can, you got $1 million profit, you can reinvest. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.